Welcome back to How Soccer Explains Leadership. Thanks again for being a part of the conversation. So excited for the one we have for you today. I'm Phil Darke, your host, and with me, my brother, my co-host, Paul Jobson. Paul, how you been, man?
Phil, doing well, man. It's good to be back on the pod, and obviously really excited about our guest today. We'll get to that in a little bit, but man, just catch us up. How are things going in the world out there with you guys? You've been
Well,
traveling a
as
bit.
I have, and that's why we had, and it was a good thing because we had Graham Daniels back on with the recast, and man, I just every time I listen to that interview, I'm just blown away. So good, so good. And so, folks, if you haven't listened to that one yet, make sure you do. It's pinned episode. It's also the last one before this one as a recast. But yeah, I was out at the Christian Alliance for Orphans Summit, and it's just always such a great thing to be able to be reminded of the different work that God has me doing there. Um, Basically, it's become a family reunion because I've been going for 17 years now. So, and then the North American Sport Movement Gathering, which was awesome to be able to again connect with people like-minded folks in the world of sport doing different ministries throughout North America. And the cool thing about that is we're really ramping up for World Cup. And so nationsunited.net, if you want to go to that and you want to get any materials to be able to help you kind of just strategies for the church during World Cup. And so if that's something that interests you, go check it out. And it's literally all open source materials you can take, plug and play into whatever you're doing, and pretty amazing stuff, and that's already there, and more will be coming over the next few months. So for watch parties, for Cup of Nations, things like that, little tournaments that we've talked about. Roman Kripanov, the episode we did with him talked about that. Some different things that from simple to complex, everywhere in between. That's something I'm really excited about. So, how about you, man? I know you had a little shindig with Carly Lloyd recently, and some other stuff with Warrior Way that you're doing. I saw even on Instagram. I don't go on very much, but I saw you. It looked like you had a date with Marcy, even. So
Yeah,
that's a big moment. So
yeah,
that's good. Anyway, what's going on with you?
yeah. No, we had an amazing event. I think it was, as of recording right now, it was last weekend. We had Carly Lloyd come in. Warrior Way Gives has a feature now called Inspire Her, and it's exactly that, just trying to inspire young women or any women within the game itself. And Carly came in. We did an event in Dallas, had about 250 girls at this clinic with Carly, and she got to share a bit, and Marcy got to share a bit. It was really just an amazing event. Partnered up with the Girls Classic League in Dallas, as well as Atletico Dallas Youth in Dallas. Really helped us put on an amazing event that day. And then that night, we had a VIP dinner with some local Dallas soccer leaders. Again, just really sharing more about how we can inspire young women in the game as well. So really cool. Just one of those things you kind of dreaming of for a while, and just got put everything together at the right time, and it was just really an amazing event for us as an organization. And yeah, Marcy and we finished up Warrior Way season on Monday, and yes, we had a date at what's called Sip City. It's like a flavored drink cola thing.
Nice.
It's very addicting, so you have to watch
Yes.
out for that. But we're having to
Right.
curb our budget from that place, so it's been great. But no, everything else is going well. We're ramping up for, as you know, end of the year fundraising events, things like that. So, but it's been an amazing year, a blessed year for us as well. But let's dive in, man. I'm super excited about our episode today, our interview. We've got the amazing Becca Darke on with us today.
Yeah.
Yes, folks, the last name sounds very familiar. Yes, she is. She is not the wife of Phil. Phil is the husband of Becca Darke,
That's
our
right.
our guest today. And Becca, we're just really excited to have you on today.
Hang on, Paul. I just got to add something because we found something out recently to add to the intro. Normally, I don't have a bio, but we found out Becca is in the Hall of Fame at Colorado College for
Oh,
women's
sorry, Hall of
soccer. So,
Famer
Hall
at
of
Colorado
Famer. Yes.
College, Becca Darke on today. And not
Yes.
that she needs the accolades,
No, but
but
I
it
just thought I'd
does
throw that in
help.
there.
It helps to set things up a little bit as we dive in here. So Becca,
Yes.
thanks
Yes.
for taking some time to come on with us.
Well, I'm so thankful to grace you with my presence this morning. I'm totally kidding. No, I'm really honored to be here. Shocked that you guys would want to have some time with me on the podcast, but thanks. Yeah, it's I'm a couple of rooms away from Phil. Hopefully there's not a lot of interference here, but yeah, it's awesome to be on with you guys. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, I think it's been a long time coming, Phil. And I've been talking about for a while when we can do this, when we can make it happen. And I'm just glad we've been able to do that. And Becca, I know you're a longtime listener, so you know how all this works, but love to just, for our listeners, just get a background on you. Just tell us your story, your faith journey, how you developed your passion for soccer, ministry, teaching, kind of all the things you've been doing, and kind of how that's led to kind of what you're doing today.
Awesome. Well, that's a great question. It'll take me 12 hours to answer probably all that. I will try to make it as succinct as possible. I was born in Minnesota in 1974, and I grew up in a hockey climate. My dad was a hockey player. I'm one of 6 kids. I have an older brother, and I'm the oldest girl of 5 girls. So back in the old days, I think I was ice skating before I was walking. My dad would teach us. We'd go down to the local frozen pond and skate away, and I loved it. I loved. You don't know it as a kid. You just love moving your body, and it was just very natural for me to whatever I was doing. I did it. It wasn't like, am I good at this? Am I not good at this? I just did it. And so hockey actually was my first sport growing up, because that's what you do in Minnesota. And my brother was a big hockey player, my dad, and so we just, I had a stick in my hand and a hockey puck, and we would just, do our thing. And then the first sport, I would have been, I don't know, 5 years old maybe or so. Whenever youth hockey starts, it's probably 3 years old. You can get on a team probably, but I was probably 5. I was late to the game. And I joined, my dad signed me up for a hockey team. Of course, there's no girls hockey back then. And so I played with the boys. I was on a boys team, and I loved it. My dad was my coach, and it was super fun. And I got made fun of a lot. I had my long ponytail hanging out of my helmet, and the boys would snicker, and you're a girl, you can't play hockey. And I didn't answer back. I wasn't a mouthy kind of a person. I just hit them harder when skated down the ice. So, and I loved it. From a young age, I loved the physicality of sport. And I was good. I was I was the leading assister. Back in the little bubble league, we call it. We were in these it was so freezing cold there. It was like miserable. I couldn't feel my feet half the time, but I loved it, and I was good. And it, we did our thing. I was about 8. We moved to Arizona, and there wasn't a lot of ice hockey going on in Arizona at the time, as you can imagine. And my brother still played. He played for I don't know. It was my brother continued to play. My brother was a goalie. My dad was a goalie. And of course, soccer kind of came into the picture. My dad's like, oh, so my dad was a big sport guy. He played collegiate tennis, collegiate hockey. Back in high school, he was football. Like, he did it all, right? Back in the day, he did it all. So sports was a thing. And my mom was very athletic as well. She did not have the opportunities to play sport. And so, but what my mom did was she would go around her neighborhood back in Minnesota and just knock on doors and say, hey, we're going to go. She was like the original, like, Sandlot, like, hey, we're going to go play softball. My mom was creating softball teams, co-ed. We're going down. It was awesome. And she just did it. She would swim across the lake, and she'd join the swim teams, because they did do some of that. But my mom was also very athletic. So I inherited a lot of athletic genes. So when we got to Arizona, it was like, okay, what youth sports are going on? What can we get our kids involved in? And it was soccer. And I love my dad. He's like, I'll coach you. I've never played soccer. I don't know anything about soccer, but it's basically hockey on grass. So without a stick. So when you kick it, instead of hit it with a stick, you kick it, kick the ball, kick the big puck that's a round ball with your foot. So he's like, how hard can it be? And my dad was my coach, and it was great. He and I don't remember much. We were in the Sereno Soccer Club back then. And my first team I remember was not super great. And then he's like, oh, well, next year we're going to go to this like better-ish team. So my guess it was more of a travel or comp or whatever the language was. And I got to travel. I got to go to Las Vegas, and I was in, third or fourth grade. And I'm like, this is, a whole new world for me. And I loved it. I played goalie. I played on the field. And that we were in Arizona 2 years, ended up in Pleasanton, California, Bay Area. And my dad said, you're going to love it. It's Soccer City. Whatever it was called Soccer City back then. I'm sure it's not today, but we went to Pleasanton and I was in 5th, 6th grade and jumped in right there to the soccer. I missed the tryouts. So I was on this lower level team the first year, and it was like, I was kind of could score at will. It was kind of silly to me, which was fine. It was great. And then the next year, I got the tryouts and I made the comp team, and I just loved it. I loved it. My sisters started playing. We're big. My mom. The joke was my mom was always on the sideline, pregnant with like little toddlers hanging off of her and screaming her head off. So my friends would remember my mom that way. And so that was. I was in California all the way through high school, and then my dream was to play Division I soccer. I wanted to go to a great academic school and play Division I soccer. That was my dream. A bigger dream would have been the national team, and that was starting to become a thing in high school, like in terms of the Olympic development program, and that's kind of the one route to get to that level. So I always had my sights kind of set on that, but also knowing, kind of I don't want to say my limitations, but just like I was realistic. I thought that would be that's a big deal, but that's kind of what I was shooting for. But definitely I thought D1 soccer scholarship, I could attain that. And so that was kind of set my sights on that a bit. So that's my road to collegiate soccer. And I don't know, I'll stop there and you can ask. I forgot if I even answered the question.
Well, one of the things that Phil and I talked a lot about on here is just another example of how things have changed a bit with parents coaching. How your dad wasn't a soccer player. Phil and I have talked about that with I think our own parents, but stepping in and teaching and coaching, and now the next generation. Most of us as parents have probably played soccer. I don't know how many that are out there that are stepping in to do that, but it's another cool example of that. But as you kind of went through that, and you were diving into, obviously you went to Colorado College, had a career there. Tell us kind of how did you then go from there to what was next? How did you kind of get into ministry, to teaching, and those sorts of things?
Yeah. So I was at Colorado College from 92 to 96. And that was just really, I can't think of the word. It was awesome to be there. It was awesome to be there. And just kind of how I ended up there, I think was obviously a total God thing. It's a Division III school with Division I men's hockey and Division I women's soccer. And when I was in ODP and I was playing, I went to the regional camp, and there was a coach, Dane Pulovich, that was there, and he had currently been the Colorado College head coach, and it would not have been a fit. So I didn't really consider Colorado College. My dad said, well, you should consider CC. That's where Horace Richardson, of course, you guys interviewed him, who's I call him my uncle. It's kind of uncle removed a bit or once or whatever. But anyway, Horace Richardson is a connection. He says like, no, it's an awesome school. My dad was really pushing for CC. And so just out of almost to honor my dad, mostly, I wasn't totally interested. I applied and I got in, and he said, and he said, well, you should do, Dang left the program to start the new program at UW. And so a new coach, Carl Beal, was the assistant, going to be the interim head coach, reach out. But there was all this transition going on there. And so my dad reached out to Horace, and Horace sent me a men's soccer questionnaire to fill out. So I filled out a men's soccer questionnaire. I sent it back, snail mail back to CC. And he's like, I'll put that, you filled it out, put it on the desk of the CC coach, the women's coach. And so it's kind of the back door. They contacted me, hey, Becca, we're going to fly you out for a visit. I landed in April of my senior year. So it was very late at that point in terms of, agreeing to, finding the college you're going to say yes to. And I stepped on the CC campus and I was in love. I'm like, this is where I need to be. So I knew that's where I was going to go. So I went. It was awesome. But then I come to find out, I'm like, I just want to make the travel. I mean, they are legit. They were in the Final Four, the year before, and they had this rich, rich history. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm coming into this awesome program. I hope to make the traveling squad. And sure enough, I came in really at a really opportunistic time to play, and that they had graduated out this incredible, a large senior class, and like so many of them are all Americans. It left this big void. And basically I was one of 4 freshmen to start my freshman year. And I had to, they converted me to a sweeper position. Back then it was, striker, sweeper, all that, stopper. And they're like, oh, you're going to be great. You're just the girl that just graduated was like a 2-time All-American. The girl before that was a 3-time All-American. I'm like freaking out. And so I really had to learn the position well and quickly. And that's a whole nother story, but I did, and I got to play and I loved it. I loved my team. I just loved everything about it. And soccer became, it was my identity, it was totally my identity as well as my academics. And I loved it a lot. It was my everything. It was totally, I love the Graham Daniels podcast about achieved identity or received identity. Definitely my achieved identity right there. And I played that way. When I also simultaneously struggled a lot with injury, and I had a couple knee surgeries in high school, and I was always suffering from patellar tendonitis to a point, you just kind of deal with the pain. And then it gets to a point where like, you're struggling through it. And we had an awesome sports med team there. I spent just as much time in I spent as much time in that room than I did out on the field. And I'm smiling. I just got to come back from my 50. It was a side note, 2 weekends ago they were celebrating the 50th year of women's sport at Colorado College. It was beautiful. Next year will be my 30-year reunion, but it was just really, really cool to be back on campus and just kind of really revisit just the people that laid the groundwork. They did some it was incredible. And I had to go back into the sports med. I'm like, oh my gosh. And everything is like so much better now than it was back then, of course. But also tuition is like, $75,000 now a year. So like, I didn't have to pay that. But anyway, and I ran into one of my old trainers, and it like brought tears to my eyes. I'm like, Quincy, oh my gosh, because I spent as much time with them as my coaches. But wrestling through injury, that was definitely a part of my story. And my junior year, so I had that going on, as well as I was getting involved with a Christian ministry on campus. 2 of them. I had my freshman year, I was invited into an FCA group. I had no idea what that was. And I had grown up Catholic. I didn't mention that. I'd grown up Catholic in a faithful family. I loved the Lord. I went to church on Sunday. That was kind of that in a nutshell. At college, I had this football player, senior football player, kind of from my hometown, said, "Oh, hey, Becca, like, I'm going to this thing. You should come with me. You're a Christian, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "You're Catholic, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "It's called FCA." I didn't even know what FCA stood for. I'm like, "Okay, I'll go." I mean, it could have been anything. I would have gone because, it's a senior football player and I'm a little freshman. You just want to be included into whatever. I always joke. I'm like, it could have been like this witchcraft thing. And I've been like, sure, I'll go. But anyway, it was that. And it was cool. It was different. It was, whatever. And I did that. And then that kind of fizzled out. But then I had another friend who was on the basketball team who said, "Oh, Becca, you should come to this group called Crew. And you got to meet this couple, Phil and Kathy Thompson. They're awesome. They have 5 kids, blah, 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 blah." And I'm like, all right, I'll go. And I fell in love with this small group of people and this couple that came to campus, and they were just so hospitable, and they just opened up the scriptures because I didn't know, I knew a lot of things, but I didn't know a lot of things from a biblical standpoint, really. And I was at a very, I was at a liberal arts school and very intellectual people. I was challenged a lot. That I was out of my little suburbia bubble, and I had to answer questions that I didn't feel confident to answer regarding faith and spirituality. And that was really hard for me because I'm like, I know God is real, and that's that. That's not going to satisfy a highly intellectual person who, comes at you with, all the things. My apologetics were not very good. They still aren't super great. But anyway, Phil and Kathy Thompson, welcomed me in their home. And it was kind of my home away from home because it was familiar to me with their big family. And I soaked it all up. So I was doing that, falling more in love with God, and like kind of understanding who I am, what my, why I'm here, all those deep theological questions, while also competing at a high level, suffering through injury, all the stresses of school and this and that, and partying. I was like kind of doing it all. I'm like, woo, I'm all over the place. And then I had that moment of I cannot run anymore. My knee hurts so bad. So I had the surgeon. We had the best. We were in Colorado Springs. Our surgeons there were the Olympic surgeons. Yeah, I mean, like we had the best of the best from a medical team there. So Dr. Tom Mahoney was like, he's in the Hall of Fame too there. It's kind of funny. But he was like, Becca, here, you need a patellar realignment. It's a big deal. You may never play soccer again. Well, I mean, it wasn't quite that, he wasn't that curt, but it was just, I knew I was up against the idea of, I can't continue playing soccer in this state I'm in. I need this surgery. It's risky. It may work. It might not work. You might not come back to finish your soccer career, find something else that you like to do. And that shattered me, because that was like, well, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So I did the surgery. I had a moment. I remember being back in Minnesota at a family reunion. And I'll never forget, I was up in the woods of northern Minnesota at our cabin, my family's cabin. And again, I wasn't well versed in scriptures yet. And I just kind of opened the Bible. And of course, it was Philippians chapter 4:4-7. Rejoice in the Lord. I will say it again, rejoice, the Lord is near. Be anxious for nothing. I mean, I was like, oh my gosh, I got to rejoice. I am so anxious. I'm so anxious about what's next for me. And it was just like, I just felt the peace. It was like such a real just moment with God. I mean, it was like so tangible. Like I felt like the weight of the Lord. I mean, I felt like the peace of God on me. And it was just like, everything's going to be like the message was like, everything's going to be okay. You're going to be okay. It wasn't like, oh, your knee's going to be fine. You're going to play soccer and have this great career after. Like that wasn't, it was like, you're going to be okay. And that meant a lot to me. So I came back to school I think that was my junior year. And sure enough, that one surgery didn't work. But I had a piece that I didn't have before. And then they said, you need to have the big patellar realignment. I think they were doing a trial thing to avoid the patellar realignment, and it didn't work. Patellar realignment, which they did. And it's like an ACL recovery. I mean, you're out for the year. It's like it's the whole thing. So I did the surgery, but I had a piece. So my heart was shifting in those later years and of college. And when I came back, I worked hard. I worked really, really hard to get back. And I didn't know, but I felt like I'm going to come back and play. And I did. I came back. And I think, Phil, this is the summer. I'm getting mixed up on my years, but I was also, because it was the summer going into our senior years, Phil, right? That we did our
trip to Europe.
Yeah, our trip
the soccer trip to Europe.
I'm trying to think of the timing. So I must have had one of the surgeries, Phil. So I'll in between one of my surgeries, I'm growing in my faith. I'm kind of exploring the Lord more, and I see this random just flyer in our up by our locker rooms. And it was for this Christian Sports Outreach International, you know, go to Australia, go to Europe, play soccer. And I was like, oh, well, at that point I knew I'm not going to make the national team. Like, I'm not going to, and there's no, and at that time, professional soccer really wasn't a thing. And if it was, I'm like, okay, that I know that door's kind of closed. I want to go and travel in the world and play soccer. Here's my chance. So I grab it, I call it, I sign up. I wanted to go to Australia. I raised money. I was super excited. It was the summer going to our senior year, and that Australia trip was canceled. And they said, well, you can defer for another year and do Australia next summer, or go over to the Europe side. And I'm like, well, this is the only summer I got going to Europe. I love soccer and I want to travel. Those are my motivations. And I'm like, and I love God. that was kind of like thrown in the back. And so I went on it. That's where Phil and I met in Minnesota for the training camp. And then we flew out. So that's a whole nother story. But the point back at that time was, and that trip was awesome. I learned a lot. I was very disappointed on that trip for many reasons, but it was all the right things. God was teaching me a lot about identity and what, you know, soccer is not the end all be all. It's a vehicle. I was kind of learning those things. And other things. I came back my senior year and I played, and it was amazing. I was so happy, and there was a big shift in all that time. My senior year, I came back, and it was the first time I had that joy of the game again, and I was happy to play. And I think when I'll go back to Graham's podcast, I'm like, that's what it was. I was always playing out of this achieved identity. And by my senior year, now I was playing, I think, out of a received identity. And I just had joy. And it was like, oh, I kind of had soccer in its proper place. And I loved it. And I was able to play. And I was thankful. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can run. Like, who cares if I'm good or not? Like, I can run. And this is great. And it truly was a moment for me and a huge part of my life. And so that was the impetus really to, after graduation, okay, Lord, how can we further this? I'm kind of getting the picture now. You gave me a love for sports. I'm good at sports. I'm good at soccer. You've trained me. I've played at a high level. I've dealt with injury. I've dealt with adversity, and I love you. And I want to do, and I was a psychology major as well, by the way, which is like, I wanted to get into counseling and this and that. And so like, that was my heart. And after college, I was like, oh, I'm going to get my master's and be a family marriage therapist, whatever, says the single woman who has no family. And, back then. So, but God kind of shifted that. So after I graduated, I was going to come back for a fifth year because I had that red shirt year, but my knee by the end of that senior season, it was like, yeah. And my sports trainers were like, you could come back, but you will have major arthritis by the time you're 35. Like, do you want that? I'm like, nope, I want to have kids. I want to run around with my kids. I want to coach my kids, all the things. So I stepped away. I left my senior year. I did not come back for a fifth year season. And I kind of hung the boots up and pursued. I went to go pursue. I lived in Denver after that to work with. I did an internship working with abused children. I wanted to get into counseling, and it was beautiful. And then God was just doing a whole bunch of different things in my life, and I ended up not pursuing a master's, but I ended up going on staff with Athletes in Action. It was just going back to that couple, Phil and Kathy Thompson. They kind of challenged me to do this thing called AIA. And I'm like, what is that? I have no idea what that is. And they explained it. And I thought, okay, I'll give it a try. And I ended up with Athletes in Action after college, which then led me to the University of Hawaii. And I was pretty much like a chaplain at University of Hawaii, Manoa, for a couple of years. And so, and then there's more after that, but that's kind of, I'll land there so you guys can jump in and clarify or ask me whatever you want.
Yeah, I'll jump in and just kind of fill in blanks. After that, I basically was the reason you left staff because we ended up getting married, and then we had our first kid, and but then that led us to be in Atlanta, right, where we were able to set up our, kind of set up some roots. But you also were able to be the chaplain for the Atlanta Beat, which is where you met Marcy. And we probably met Paul there too, but he didn't make much of an impression on us, I think is what it was
I
at that
remember
point.
meeting Becca, but I didn't really
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
I
her.
Well,
remember, I
basically,
remember reading Paul.
yeah. So
Yeah.
we didn't make an impression on each other. Let's put it
Yeah,
that way.
exactly,
It's
exactly.
like, who are these guys? They don't matter, whatever. But the ladies definitely made impressions on each other. Um, so, and then obviously mom, for a very, we have 5 kids, and then be able to be a PE teacher as well in all of that, and then retired from that this last year, or actually this school year. And so now it's a new season that we can get into. But as you know, we're going to get into some of those things, and Paul wants to, we want to dive into that, the chaplaincy as well, and some other things. But before we get into that, what is your personal why, kind of your purpose, and how are you living that out?
I'm trying to figure that out every day. um, you know, um, my parents modeled well for me so many things in life. They work hard, they're faith, they love God, they're faithful. Um, they they've taught me well. And one of the things that my dad always comes back, and I kind of, I took it and ran with it, was the idea of the parable of the talents, in Matthew 25, and just to whom much has been given, much will be expected. But also, we're all given a certain, we're all given something, talent, skill, whatever, and we're born in a certain place. We're given certain opportunities, and it's gonna look different. And then in that parable, it's, one person gets one person gets two, one person gets five, I think. And the guy with two goes and invests it, and he brings back four, and the master's like, oh, well done, good job. The guy with five's like, hey, master, I took your 5 talents, and I went and invested it, and here's 10. I doubled it. And the guy with one, and so he got a commendation for that. And then the guy with one was like, oh, master, I was scared of you, and you're a hard guy or whatever. And I buried it, but here, I didn't lose it. So here it is, but here it's back, and he got in trouble, and my dad would say, he lives kind of by that. And I feel like, in a way, I think I've lived my life in that way too. Like, I want to, whatever I've been given brains, I've been given, abilities. I love sports, just all the things that make me who I am. And I want to invest it I want to invest it and see, what's God going to do with this? I'm just a person here for a short period of time. Even if I live super long, I mean, in light of eternity, it's just, a blip on the screen. So I want to be very intentional with how I live. And I wouldn't have put it in those words back then, but when I look back as a child, like I was the kid, like I wanted to be head of the class. The teacher gives me, something to do, I'm going to do that plus. The coach tells me to run a mile, I'm going to run a mile and a half or whatever. And not that that's, like, I'm going to do more. I'm going to work hard, and I want to go above and beyond. That's how my parents taught me. And I think that's honoring to the Lord. Now, but I have to counter that, because then that becomes this achievement. I was very driven by achievement, and that can produce pride in its own way, of course, and just that not the proper identity to run in. And so then to balance that with, I had a real big kind of aha moment in college, as I was growing in the Lord and being discipled. And my mom blessed me in college with a Bible with she had my name engraved on it, and it was like the teacher Bible, and it had like it was like, here's the scripture, and then it was like all below was all the commentary and stuff that kind of helped you. And I just devoured. I was like, oh wow, I didn't know. So like something was happening inside of me, and I remember reading The Prodigal Son, and I stopped. It was like I just had this moment with God, and I think later on I had heard a sermon kind of going back to that, where you always think of the prodigal son who squanders everything. That wasn't me. That was my sister or whatever, I never saw myself in that story, but then it was that aha moment, like, oh, there's two sons, there's two brothers, and there was the older brother. And I totally identified as this older brother person in that, like, oh, I was the self-righteous one. I was the one that did everything right. I was the one that was like, okay, mom and dad, like, what do you want me to do? All right, I'll do it. I'll be that, they didn't have to worry about me. I wasn't getting in trouble. And those are good things, to not get in trouble, to honor and obey your parents. Those are good things. But I think what God was teaching me was like, I had weaponized it. And when I look back at how I treated my younger sisters, for example, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like this self-righteous older sister. And I remember picking up the phone and calling my sister Kari, who was 4 years younger. And I just, out of the blue, I go, Kari, I am so sorry. I was like a jerk to you. I was, and I don't know exactly all that I said. She like bawled. And then, because I thought it was always, you always think it's the other person, like they owe me an apology. They were the jerk, blah, 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 blah. And it was like, there was like, no, you got to own your part. You were the big sister. You need to show love to, blah, blah, whatever. And she bawled, and there was a shift in her because of me, the older sister, coming, pursuing her and seeking forgiveness. And that was monumental. And so I share like those two. So on one hand, I kind of live by this purpose of like, I've been given this, and I want to invest it and achieve things, but achieve things for God's glory, not mine. It used to be all about my glory, if I'm being honest. And now it's like, oh my gosh, no, this is bigger than me. This is about God's kingdom. So I still want to pursue that and do that, but hold it with that posture of humility, because it's easy to become self-righteous, I think, in those places. And so to be meek and gentle, and to understand that I've been given much, but I can't take credit for any of it. It's all been handed to me. It's been a gift that God's given me, and that I am supposed to steward it for His glory, not mine. And so to come into those relationships with a humble posture. So if there are people in your life that are, prodigal, so to speak, we have to see that I was a prodigal too, being that self-righteous in my big sister, that's a form of being a prodigal, because my pride had separated me. So it just looks different. It can look different in people's lives. So I think God just really leveled the playing field for me. Like, yeah, no, you too, Becca. You're missing the point, Becca. So I forget what the question was. Oh, purpose. So in life, I think as I see that and understand that more, I want to make room for people to experience God in that way. And I was so task focused. And I still can be very task focused, but as a kid, it was all about me and my achievements. I don't have time for people. I remember my uncle, and I love taking pictures of like, nature and this and that. And I remember my uncle, he was a priest. And he said, Becca, it's like cause I would travel or whatever, when I was off to Europe with that sports, he's like, take pictures. He's like, you can always buy I'll never forget. He goes, you can buy a postcard of nature, but when you take pictures, make sure there are people in your picture. And the point was like, people are important. Relationships are important. And I didn't invest in a relationship as a younger person the way I should have. And so I feel like I'm making up for that now. Like it's all about relationship, and keeping kind of this heart of hospitality, making room for the other people. All my kids are all like, anytime they want to bring their friends over, I'm like, yeah, even if it's like super inconvenient, I'm like, yeah, they can come over. We'll find a room. I'll figure it out, and, but to live with that purpose, because everybody is somewhere in their journey in life, and people are all suffering from some sort of pain in their life. And so just to kind of to enter into their world and look to listen to what that pain point is and draw from my own experiences. If I can make a connection, I will. I'll try. But at the end of the day, just love them. Just love them for who they are, and say, hey, you are welcome here, and I want to, you know, I want to lavish any kind of grace I can give you. I want to lavish it on you because I have received so much lavish grace from the King of Kings. So he pours into me, and I want to pour it out onto others as much as I can. So that would be my general why. And it's going to look different every day, however that might look. So.
No, I love that. I really love how this kind of all come together, and kind of the experiences. And this is how it is with everybody, I think. But your experiences, what God put you through, your life went through, those experiences, how He's wired you, not only your injuries but your successes as well, and how that played into being a chaplain or a leader or a ministry leader through high level athletes. I mean, I think,
Yeah.
you know, where our paths came together at the Atlanta Beat, we're talking about a first time professional women's league, right? So these women who their goals were probably college and national team as well,
Right.
but all of a sudden there's this pro league. You've got teams of, you know, women from all over the world, really, and we're talking about Atlanta, and really, I would arguably the best women in the world were in Atlanta. That's
it was incredible.
My preference to say. But when you insert yourself into that as a servant, really, you know, and not a Christian team, but a team with Christians, take us through kind of what that was like. I mean, it's a kind of a whole new world. Not that we didn't have people doing ministry with professional athletes,
right,
but this was kind of a whole new world for everybody, all of us that entered into this women's pro league. And you're coming in as a, you know, a servant, as a leader in the faith side of it. Take us through kind of what that was like, and maybe, you know, how you felt like that impact was not only on them, but on you through that time.
Oh, that was so cool to be a part of that. You know, when I was, there was a song I sang at church when I was little, and I love it. It's one of my favorites. It's from Isaiah, and it's, you know, here I am, Lord, send me, you know, where here I am. Yeah, we're not gonna sing it. But anyway, here I am. And that was kind of the cry of my heart. Maybe that is kind of my purpose in life. Here I am, Lord, send me. So it's just kind of that posture. God, I'm available. Most of the things in my life, I did not actively, I didn't go to Atlanta and be like, all right, where's that professional soccer team? I'm going to go find them, and I'm going to offer my, you know, chaplaincy services. So it kind of landed in my lap. And I think it was through Marcy and Amanda, who I did not know, Amanda Cromwell, who was on the team then. And they reached out there was a couple, Reed and Carolyn Lamphere, in that area, who were, they were AIA staff, two professional athletes. They had this, I mean, they were just a gem of a couple, salt of the earth, and just incredible experience, older, incredible. And I'm just, you know, I'm married to Phil. I've got little Malia on the way, or maybe she was born at that point. And I was just trying to figure out married life, and this opportunity came around, and I was like, oh my gosh. What's so cool about that was, you know, the Lord has his special ways, I think, to fulfill those desires of your heart. Now, I never made, you know, my personal journey was not, oh, I'm going to be on the national team or play professional sports, but it was always this, like, you know, this like pie in the sky kind of desire. I loved it. I appreciated it. Okay, that's not for me. But here the Lord kind of flipped, and he's like, no, you're still going to get to be a part of this. In a different kind of a way that you didn't expect. And so I forget, Phil, you can jump in. My facts get a little blurry. I think Carolyn reached out to us.
Yeah.
Because of my AIA staff status, you know, somebody told her that I was there. So she reached out, and she was like, oh, hey, this is your wheelhouse. You're the soccer player. And I'm like, oh yeah, you know, and wow, we get to, so I didn't know. Oh, and that's another cool thing. Cause in Hawaii, we had zero access to the soccer team. And so that was a bummer, but I love being with the volleyball team, basketball, all the other sports, but soccer was such a closed door. And I'm like, okay, I didn't really get to enjoy that, you know, soccer kind of came to a close. So here God was opening up that soccer door again for me. So that was really cool. Anyway, so we go and we meet Amanda and Marcy. Really, I think that's so key in any kind of a situation. You have those bridge builders, and they were such bridge builders in that, to welcome us in and to kind of get all access pass really into the locker room. And here I am sitting, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's Brianna Scurry, you know. I played against her, you know, when she was at UMass, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she was our national team goalkeeper. Hamari Sawa from Japan, like, come on, she's amazing. And then Sun Wen, and I'm like, I was like starstruck. I'm like, oh my gosh, like here I am. And they were just like the coolest. And I had a secret weapon with Malia. So she was a little baby. It's like carrying a little puppy into the locker room, you know? And so it was just this natural, like, oh my gosh, look at your little, you know, they wanted to hold her. It was great. Carolyn was so, she kind of took the lead role, I would say, and which I'm so glad she did, because she had experience. She had, looking back now, I'm like, oh, she had that motherly. I mean, she was a mom. She was experienced. She had been in ministry forever. She has done this. This was like second language for her, and she just really knew how to approach the women and just open it. Like it was. I just watched her. I gleaned a lot from her. Because she just had this like this older woman, this wisdom about her. She wasn't old, but she just, you know, she was further along. We were 28. I don't know, what was I, 27, 28?
Something like that.
Yeah. And so I see that now as a 51-year-old, and you know, I've, you know, we've got adult children, and I can see where just life gives you those experiences, and you're just more seasoned, and how that can just bless a group of young women. And so she had that piece, and I had the piece of like, I know what it's like to suffer through injury. I know what it's like to not have your expectations not be met, to have you know, just some of the things that, you know, body image stuff, or whatever it might be, whatever, you know, where am I on the pecking order? Is the coach, am I in the coach's, you know, am I one of the coach's favorite or not? Do I have to sit the bench again? Like, you know, all the kind of the psychology of I think sports, I could lean into that a little bit with them and just build friendships. And it was really cool. And we had some of the girls over at our house from time to time, and they were just open. Some of them weren't, and that's fine. But they loved Malia, and Malia would run around. And then the next year I had Drew, so that was like a double whammy. I had, you know, Malia was like the cute little 2.5-year-old toddler going crazy, and then I had cute little Drew in my arms, and so it was sweet to do ministry there. I think Tom Stone was the coach. I didn't really have much run, and you worked with him, right, Paul? Weren't you on his staff?
Just with the Atlanta Beat, worked with him through there, and then when he went to coach collegiately, he went to Texas Tech, and then a year later we went to Baylor. So we never really worked together necessarily, but competed against each other quite a bit.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I don't recall really having much interaction with him, but with the girls, and just to be invited into that circle was really special. The games were super fun, and I was just really proud as a women's soccer player. Like, oh, look what we've become. Like, there are people that have paved the way for this to now happen. And it was great to see some high caliber women, and then just women, like, you know, internationally. I mean, it was really cool, and it really paved the way. What was it, 3 years? The WUSA was around for like 2001 to whatever. And, you know, and then it failed. Or, I mean, you know, just financial issues. That's how it always is. It's not, what's that? Would you say?
It failed. Financially
It failed. Yeah. And you can almost expect that when you're, you know, it takes, it's like the choo-choo train. It's like, you know, we're laying the brick. We're going to get there. And you have to go for it, and there's going to be fail. It's a fail for, because, you know, here we are now, and there is, you know, the national, you know, soccer league for women. And it takes the four, you know, the founders, you know, to do that. So to be a part of that generation, and is really significant for me. And it was really a gift that God gave me in those years, and I'm really thankful. And you just sow seeds. You don't know what conversation is going to lead to what. You don't know if just loving on somebody, never even, opening the Bible with them, but or sharing anything verbally. But if you're just serving and loving people, it can soften hearts. It can just you're sowing seeds, and you don't know where the growth is going to come or when it's going to come. But that was fun. That was a lot.
Yeah.
That was
It
some
was
fun
a fun time. And I think one of the cool things about just looking back on that, and I was in a different place in my life too, but um, the impact that you can have in a locker room in that kind of environment where
Mhm.
not only you're making an impact on some of those women who are also making an impact on other little girls and families, because that was such a family environment. And
Yes.
just it was almost annoying, the high pitched screams coming from the stands during the games
It
because the
was
little kids were so excited. But I missed that. It was so fun. But just
yeah.
that impact looking back now to say, man, it was so cool. And even thinking, I think we're almost at the age that Reed and Carolyn were when we were in Atlanta, I think.
Mhm. Yeah, I
With
know,
their
those
age
old
Yep.
when we were in
people.
Atlanta. And they were amazing people, and how the impact they had on obviously you guys and us. I mean, they did mine and Marcy's marriage counseling before we got married. And just now looking and going, okay, how can we then become those folks as well and continue
Yeah.
to do that and impact? And that's kind of to your point earlier of how do we continue to pass those things along and be more than
Yeah.
what people are
Yeah.
expected on us. But that's
Yeah.
some just really some awesome stuff. And I know we could dive a lot deeper into probably some amazing stories and cool things. And maybe if you'll allow, maybe we as we always say, most of our guests like come back on again, right, Phil? Like and fill in
That's
the
right.
gaps and continue more stories. But as the great Phil says, all things must come to an end at some point. So we'll probably start winding things down here. Phil, you haven't chimed in. You've not, you've given some updates, you tied some things together, but
Well, here's the thing is, you go back to the beat and you guys meeting and Becca with Marcy and, being able to pour into each other to a certain extent, like this podcast, we sure as heck wouldn't be co-hosts if
no,
that didn't happen.
that's
So
true.
even seeing, because I remember we talked about this, the reason why we went to Baylor to where we met when Malia was looking at colleges, you know, full disclosure, she didn't want to go to Baylor. It was a ruse so she could go to the Magnolia Silos.
Totally.
Um, but God had different purpose there, right? And he had this thing that now we just a great friendship. Although I did go back to the silos last week, the stars seemed to align that we could get together in person, and it just couldn't happen last week, a couple weeks ago. But that's okay.
I know.
Next time, that's okay.
Very
It,
very frustrating on my end. My football kid who never has football
yeah,
on those dates. I'm like, what's going on? And Marcy was out of town
yeah,
with the Carly Lloyd event too, so
it is
wasn't
what
meant
it
to
is.
be. But
It
you
was
did get
not.
to experience Waco again.
That's
It's great.
true. That's true. A Baylor football game with my friends from Honduras, which was fun seeing them with the American football. So, all that to say, we had that be able to see how these different things and God orchestrates these different moments to be able to see that. And then even being on the other side of that beat to see how life-giving it was to you, Becca, for the not just like you said to be part of a team, but just be able to pour into young women at the time, which you have continued to do throughout the course of our marriage and throughout the course of your life, to be able to pour into young women and your peers as well, to be able to just be that you do what you talk about your purpose, you do so incredibly well with the making room for people. And I've learned a lot from that. That's for sure. Cause that's not my natural bent. I'm a people person, but as far as that, just really pouring into people and making it about others. So that's been something that I know a lot of people um, just really appreciate. So all that to say, I think it's just stuff that you've been able to do. Um, as we wrap up, we have these couple questions that we ask everybody, and the time always goes so fast on these things. We have a few other
Yeah.
questions. Hopefully, we can get you back on to go into some of the PE teaching lessons, maybe some stories that you have from the beat days. But like the shrapnel almost,
Oh
scarring
God.
our child during the 4th of July fireworks because they were too low, things like that. But what lessons have you learned directly from the game of soccer? And
Mm.
how have you learned? How have you, use those in our marriage, in your parenting of our kids.
Yeah.
What are those lessons that you've used in
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
those areas of your life?
It's daily. You know, I use soccer analogies all the time, or team. You got to know how to adapt. You got to know how to pivot. You got to know how to cover one another, be as a team. I get people remark about when I'm in a setting and I'm just doing something. People are surprised by some of the things I do, which shouldn't be surprising. I'm like, oh, you just cover. You know, someone's sliding over there, you slide in. It's a give and go. It's a 1-2. It's teamwork. And I think we live in such a society where it's so individual, right, all the time. And just that idea of coming together for a common goal, that's something that's like birthed into you when you start growing up on. And I had healthy teams growing up. I really, when I look back, I had great coaches all the way through. I love my teams. I that's a whole nother podcast probably for some of the stuff going on today. But I learned character through soccer. I learned how to win with humility. I learned how to lose and not throw a fit. I learned how to stick with a team even when you're not doing so great. I learned how to, when you're sidelined in life. I mean, as a parent, I can't even, like, every conversation with our kid is, I try to, because they're all, they play sports. Yeah. So it's like, well, you're just on the sidelines right now. You'll get back in, it's a season. We know when seasons start, seasons end, or they used to. I don't know. Maybe seasons don't end anymore.
Yeah.
But things are temporary. You know how to, there's going to be setbacks, and it's going to forge perseverance and patience and kindness and compassion, and to weave principles of sport that you learn, and then you bring alongside scripture. It's like a double, that's impact. And some of the things you can read, you can study it, but until you live it, you really, it doesn't become just a part of who you are until you kind of have it lived out in you. And that's, so when we're as married, Phil might go on the offense, I go on the defense, or we flip it. We know how to balance. You gotta keep your shape, right? Keep your shape, people. I used to run around everywhere. I was like, wherever the ball is, I was just, and I had a coach say, back up, like, here's your position. Stay in your lane. And then cover, so there's just, gosh, there's so much. You can do hard things. I mean, there's just, the other day I was out there doing something in the rain, and I was taking out the trash. Like, I don't know what I was doing. And you're like, oh, what are you? I'm like, dude, I played soccer. Like, I can handle cold weather, unless it's high school season in Northern California in the winter. I'm having a hard time. But you play, you know how to do dog days. You know how to push your body physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. And soccer has done that. And so I feel like I can handle a lot. And 5 kids is a lot. They're all going through a lot right now. And so I'm thankful. I'm really thankful for the road God put me on, with that. He would give me the gift of soccer to just play and have his pleasure. I think of who is it? Chariots of Fire guy. When he's like, when I run, yeah, him. And he's like, and I love that line of, like, when I run, I feel his pleasure. And I remember that soccer was that soccer was totally like that for me. When I played soccer, it was like I felt God's pleasure, and it's not a bad thing, to want to go out and kick a soccer ball around and shoulder up on some girls and stuff. It's just, it's fun. It's fun until you're hurt, and then it's not fun. But anyway, all that, lots of things. It comes out daily. And in my kids, when I taught, it's like a daily thing for me.
Becca, when you talk about the game, it looks like you're just really ready to get back out there.
Yeah.
Again,
Oh yeah.
like you're just like ready to go.
we had an alumni game at our reunion, and I did not play. And they're like, Becca, how come you didn't play? And I'm like, I need both of my trainers out there with big bags of ice, like waiting for me if I'm going to go play. I cannot afford any injuries right now. I definitely don't want to have to do an ACL, but I wish but I'm okay. I'm okay to just let other people enjoy it now. But it
But
was
Paul,
fun.
I will say she did have a foray back into indoor soccer, and it lasted, I think, 2 games until she came home with a probably grade 3 ankle sprain that took what, a year and a half to heal, probably.
It was like 2 years to heal it.
2 years
Yeah.
to heal. So
Yeah.
so that was probably 6 years ago or so, and it's
Yeah.
yeah. So I think God was saying,
Yeah.
just hang up the boots and let's and I think both of
Yeah.
us have had different ways that God has done that for us, where we're on the other side of that, where we can
Mhm.
encourage our kids through it. But the one thing that we have talked about on the show that you did not say, that I will say is a lesson that I've learned from you through your lessons through soccer, is if I shank a shot, you don't need
So,
to tell me I shanked the shot, right?
yes.
You know?
Yes. Yes. That is a good quote of mine.
Yes,
Don't
that is a
tell
good
me I
So Phil,
screwed up.
I'm glad that we finally are giving credit where credit is due, because
See?
I was giving you credit for that
Oh, that's
statement,
me.
Phil.
I never,
So
for the
Don't tell
record,
me I shanked
that
the
was a
shot.
misunderstanding. I have never, I tried to always give the footnote credit to Becca on
Yeah.
that one. So,
you probably did. I'm not trying to get you in trouble. You probably did give the footnote. I just skipped the footnotes.
because I was the one who would say, if you shank the shot, I'm going to ridicule you about shaking the shot. I think that's the way I was as a kid.
Yeah.
But it's so true. It's so true. And especially coaching, to remember that in coaching, to remember that in life, it's so important. So.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, Becca, last question here. What have you watched, read, or listened to that's impacted your thinking on how soccer explains life and leadership? Let's say lately.
Lately, yeah. That's a great question. Whatever Phil has on, when we're going on our road trips. Lately, I mean,
Or if there's not something lately, if there's something that massively impacted that, you can use whatever you want.
yeah. No, we're, our, I would say, I mean, it's kind of an unconventional answer. I was thinking about this, and yeah, there's books. I've got this. I mean, I'm kind of all over the place. I'll read a chapter here of this book and a chapter there of that book and whatnot. Lately, I've just really diving into prayer more. And so I know Phil's probably already mentioned it, but he brought home a book, Lead with Prayer. And we've listened to that a couple times, and that's impacted me a lot. But other than that, really, it's the scriptures. I'm just diving in, and I'm doing Psalms right now, and they're really it's been monumental, just because I think we're in right now in our place in life where our kids are at right now. Everybody's just kind of struggling through some stuff, and aren't we all at some point? But there's a lot of health issues going on and injuries, and like as Kirsten has a partial ACL tear right now. We just was at the doctor with her yesterday, and just these things. And so you get to a point where I can't fix things. You try to like plug everything into a formula, and I'm like, I gotta just take it really, really take it to the Lord and pray. And so I've been reading. I read a lot of scripture and Psalms, especially lately, because I find them encouraging. I find they give words. I'm not somebody who gets super emotional, or if I do, it's inside, and so it just they give words to the cry of my heart at that moment for whatever I'm crying about, for a child or a situation, or for Phil or for me or whatever, my family, my extended family. There's a lot going on. And as we get older, we see that, their problems are little when they're little, and kids are bigger. Their problems just get bigger, it seems. And so things are just heavier right now. And then what I watch, I watch sunsets. I watch my fountain in the front yard splashing water out. I watch the hummingbird. I love nature, and I'm trying to learn to sit and watch more of that. And we had some spectacular sunsets down this last week. I got to be in Colorado Springs, and then Carlsbad, and then I was up at a retreat for a day, and it was just one of those odd weeks of my life. That's not a normal thing, but I just saw some of the most magnificent sunsets over the mountains, over the ocean. Just, and that's what I watch. I try to watch that. And I have to go to bed early at night, so I can't sit up and watch TV. So yeah,
Awesome.
that's kind of, yeah, today, that's my answer.
Love it. Well, the next time we have you on, I know we'll get some different answers for that time of what's going on. But I've absolutely loved having you on, Becca. It's been awesome. Really, I think we could probably segment this, Phil, into probably 3 different things and dive really deep into maybe 3 or 4 different things. So we got to get Becca back on again to dive in deeper into some of the things that we kind of just brushed through today. But it's been awesome, Becca, catching up a bit.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Paul. So good to see you. Yeah, and there's a lot, so it was like, oh, I gotta keep it at a high view here. And it was an early, my brain isn't fully awake yet, so I'm fighting for some words in my brain there. But it was great. Say hi to Marcy.
Of course.
Hi. Maybe we can come see you guys sometimes. That would be fun.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I just had an idea that we could have the 4 of us on an episode, and we could talk about different perspectives from that time at the Atlanta Beat and motherhood and soccer and all kinds of stuff like that. I think that would be a cool thing to do.
That would be cool.
Although we might just have Becca and Marcy like laughing and hanging out the whole time, but that would be cool too,
That'd be fun. Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, it has been cool though. Speaking of watching, like as our family, I can't remember how I said this, but we started watching the Wonder Years with our kids, and like the old Wonder Years, Fred Savage Wonder Years, and I just started watching 24 with them. So the things that Becca and I watched back in the day, we're now reintroducing to our kids, and it's been fun to kind of bring them back and remember a long time ago when we were young and watching this. That's what Wonder Years was really cool, because it was I was the same age as Justin when I watched it. And so to see it kind of through his eyes is fun.
Super
So
cool.
Anyway, it has nothing to do with the podcast, but I just thought I'd throw that out there. It's a cool thing, and encourage you folks to do that with your kids, like to share things and share memories, because we're able to talk with them about some things that, that we wouldn't otherwise be able to. It brings up some memories. So anyway, Becca, I love you, and thanks for being on. That's the first guest I've said that to.
Yeah, you take out the trash when you're done. When you get off, take out the trash.
Anyway, folks out there, thanks for being a part of the conversation. Thanks for being just engaging. And we do hope that you are learning from this show, and that you're taking these things and you're using them in your life in different ways. If you want to learn more about Warrior Way that Paul talked about early on in this episode, you can do so at warriorwaysoccer.com. And as I mentioned at the beginning, nationsunited.net, if you want to go and check that out. We'll have those links in the show notes. And as we sign off as we always do, that we hope that you're taking what you're learning from this show and you're using it in your life to be a better teacher, a better coach, a better player, better spouse, a better parent, better in everything that you do. And you continually remind yourself that soccer does explain life and leadership. Thanks a lot. Have a great couple weeks.